Good morning, folks. We want to welcome you to the first debate of the 2018-19 school year. We want to thank you for all the students for all your labors downstairs in the library, preparing your arguments on each side. We give you a reminder, folks, that we'll go on each side. We'll hear a position from the pro side and con, and we'll alternate back and forth. Then they'll ask questions back and forth, and then we'll have some questions for the audience as well. Please try to have good debate etiquette and be respectful. It's all right to have, make sure the questions don't, take any negative shots at some of these folks. Usually it's pretty clean, but sometimes it gets kind of on the border there. So we ask you to do that, please. And just be respectful and enjoy the opportunity to debate in this forum. I want to take this time to introduce our moderator for today, Ms. Victoria Sullivan. I'm sure she's going to do a fine job for us. With all that being said, we're going to get started. Thank you.
We will first start off with topic number 1, flu shots should be mandatory. The pro side will start.
There have been many heated arguments today debating whether or not the flu shot should be mandatory. According to a report on September 26, 2018 from New York, an estimated 80,000 Americans died of the flu and its complications last winter. Why are so many people against the flu shot when children who go to school are required to get other vaccines? It is known more children will die of the flu this year than of polio and measles combined, so why are we so against it? The flu is a serious disease that can lead to hospitalization and sometimes even death. Anyone can get sick from the flu and spread it to others, but do you know how the flu is actually spread? Flu viruses spread mainly by droplets made when people with the flu sneeze or talk to others. These droplets can land in the mouths of noses of people who are up to 6 feet away. It can also possibly be inhaled into the lungs. Some people, such as older adults, pregnant women, young children, and people with long-term medical conditions, are at the highest risk of the flu. Some people say it's an invasion of their beliefs, but why wouldn't you want to protect your family and other people as well from dying from a serious disease like the flu when it is completely an avoidable illness with one little shot?
A way to not get influenza by just receiving an easy flu shot that will last about 5 minutes, if that. That sounds great, right? Well, just like anything else, the flu shot has their risks, and making flu shots mandatory would make these risks appear more often. People typically get the flu shot to avoid getting the disease later on. This, however, does not always work. After one receives the flu vaccine, it takes around 2 weeks before the body develops an immunity to it. During this time, if around a flu-infested environment, there is still a possibility of getting the virus. Think about it. They are taking actual strains of the flu and injecting you with it. What more direct way is there? Speaking of strains of the flu, there are many different kinds. Imagine one year you receive the flu shot that makes you feel all swell and healthy. The next year you could go in to get another flu shot, except this time it does not protect you from the virus. This could very well be because of the flu. The following year is a different strand than the kind you were vaccinated with, which makes the vaccination become less effective, if effective at all. Why take the risk and spend money for a flu shot that does not even work?
There are always going to be risks when it comes to life. When it comes to the flu, otherwise known as influenza, for example, you have 2 choices. You get the vaccine or you don't. From October to May, you're at the highest risk to acquire the flu. If you get the shot, you have the possibility of soreness and swelling in your arm, headaches, or a fever. These side effects are mild, however, and short-lasting, especially when compared to symptoms of a bad case of the flu. If you do not get the shot, you could be risking your life. According to the Centers for Disease Control, each year influenza kills between 12,000 and 49,000 people and can send more than 700,000 people to the hospital. 80,000 Americans alone just died from the flu last winter, 172 of which were children. This is why many schools are now leaning toward the mandation of flu shots. American journalist Michael Spector said that vaccination is a public health issue because influenza is a highly contagious disease. If you don't vaccinate your child, his or her classmates are more likely to become ill. That is why some people are making the vaccination mandatory for school children. Not only are you leaving yourself vulnerable to the flu, but the others around you too. Mandating the flu shot would encourage herd immunity while resulting in less time missed from work or school as well.
The flu shot is not only not risk-free, but also not vegan-friendly, nor is it compatible with all religions. Those of the Jewish religion cannot take the shot because of the gelatin it contains. The gelatin is used to keep the vaccine effective between manufacturing and use. Not only for that reason, vegans and vegetarians cannot use this shot, but for the reason of egg proteins, which the flu shot is fertilized in. It also is not friendly to those that are allergic to the egg that the shot contains. These are just some of the reasons the shot should not be mandatory.
Hello everybody. The flu shot vaccine works by stimulating your body's immune system to create antibodies. These antibodies were developed as a reaction to the flu shot to help fight off any viral infection that you were exposed to during the flu season. In the 2018 flu season, there were 3 types of strains: Type A, Type B, and Type C. Type A tends to be more serious and more likely to mutate into a new strain that people do not have the ability to build up a resistance to. Type B flu viruses are less serious, but most often affect young children. Type C causes illnesses similar to the common cold. To combat these strains, there are different types of the flu vaccine. Trivalent is a vaccine that protects against 3 strands of the flu, 2 Type A and 1 B. The trivalent vaccines have traditionally been the most popular and affordable flu vaccine. Quadrivalent is a vaccine that offers protection against 4 strains, 2 Type A strands and 2 Type B strands. As of the 2016-2017 flu season, the quadrivalent flu shot has made up about half of the available doses of the vaccine. Though pricier, they do protect from all 4 strains of the flu virus. In addition to these, some patients are able to get either egg-free flu trivalent vaccines or a high-dose vaccine. The egg-free version of the flu vaccine is called Flublok. It is made for people with severe egg allergies, but is only available to those of age 18 and older. Higher dose vaccine is intended for those of age 65 and older to make up for their weakened antibodies. Both alternative vaccines are just as safe and effective as the standard flu shots. In past years, there have also been alternatives to the actual shot part due to the towering fear of needles. The nasal inhalant called flu mist was created. With these alternatives, there were no excuses not to get a flu shot.
Among all the many risks of getting your flu vaccine, there are special risks for certain groups of people. These groups are pregnant mothers, elderly people, and children under 5. When you are pregnant, the risks are the highest. You probably want to get the flu shot to protect your child from harm. You may be doing the exact opposite. Getting your flu shot while pregnant can have many flu-like side effects that, on top of all the hardships of being pregnant, can be a lot. That is nothing compared to the risk of your child being born with defects or even a miscarriage, which was noticed as a risk in a previous study. As for the elderly, getting the flu can be very dangerous, which is why it is scary that just as many people see flu symptoms who got the vaccine as those who didn't. For young children, those under 5 are at risk too. A chemical thimerosal, which keeps the vaccine from getting bad, has been connected to the development of disorders. An alternative that doesn't have this is the nasal spray. However, this can cause many more severe symptoms, just like the symptoms of the flu.
There are a plethora of vaccines required to enter the public school system. For kindergarten alone, a child is required to have 5 shots, including polio and MMR, which protects from measles, mumps, and rubella. An estimated 80,000 Americans died last flu season, while there have been no cases of polio in the United States since 1979 and only 118 cases of measles in 2017. Why should the flu vaccine not be required when more people die from the flu than polio and the measles combined? Also, the flu shot is required by anyone who enters the child care system. Anyone who is in child care must have their flu shots. Why should it be any different for children who are around other children?
flu shot can cause many other diseases. Studies indicate that individuals receiving trivalent inactive vaccines have a larger chance of contracting Guillain-Barré syndrome and oculorespiratory syndrome. Guillain-Barré is a condition where the immune system attacks the nerves. Oculorespiratory syndrome is characterized by bilateral conjunctivitis and facial edema. The chance of these particular side effects is not as common of a side effect anymore, but the fact that they were ever a possible side effect raises concerns of what else can be caused. These are things that you should know before you get vaccinated, because ultimately the decision should be yours, not anyone else's. It's your health risk, not theirs.
With the uncertainty in life, we must be able to make necessary precautions to protect our way of life. We cannot risk millions for the comfort of a small minority. Flu vaccines prevent millions of illnesses and flu-related doctor's visits each year. For example, during 2016 and 2017, flu vaccination prevented an estimated 5.3 influenza illnesses, 2.6 influenza-associated medical visits, and 85,000 influenza-associated hospitalizations. In seasons when the vaccine viruses match circulating strains, flu vaccines have been shown to reduce the risk of having to go to a doctor with flu by 40 to 60%. A study showed that flu vaccination reduced deaths, intensive care units, admissions, ICU length of stay, and overall duration of hospitalization among hospitalized flu patients. A 2018 study showed that among adults hospitalized with the flu, vaccinated parents were 59% less likely to be admitted to the ICU than those who had not been vaccinated. Among adults in the ICU with flu, vaccinated patients on average spent 4 fewer days in the hospital than those who were not vaccinated. And when it comes to religious worries and complications, Piku Refesh, a Hebrew pronunciation which means saving a life, describes the principle in Jewish law that the preservation of human life overrides virtually any other religious consideration. When the life of a specific person is in danger, and almost any mitzvahs lotades of the command, which means command to do an action of the Torah, becomes inapplicable.
Requiring people to have mandatory flu shots is prohibiting their right to choose. Employees who refuse to get the flu shot are given mandatory time off until they receive it. Usually, the flu shot is mandatory in healthcare professions, but at Essentia Health in Michigan, 3 unions filed legal challenges resulting in the company firing 50 employees for failing to get the flu shot. Megan Duncan, Alanda Watson, and Denise Mercurius, 3 women who work at Lutheran Social Ministries of New Jersey, were forced to wear surgical masks to work or get fired because they wouldn't receive the flu shot. It didn't work in the hospital, yet they were required to get the vaccine. A woman who is a hospital technician who was also 5 months pregnant was fired for not getting the flu shot even after 2 doctors told her not to. She offered to wear a mask and a gown, yet she was still fired.
Good morning. The true topic of debate here is the flu shots and its need in order to protect the public. This viral respiratory infection can cause chills, fever, body aches, and fatigue. In some cases, it's just a case of the sniffles. But in most cases that go untreated, the flu has become deadly, with one study estimating that the influenza-related deaths have ranged from 5,000 to 49,000 since 2007 to 2014. The Con has stated that the flu can have allergic reaction and that it is someone's personal right. Well, lucky for them, there are different types of shots to accommodate them. And for personal rights, well, I'll ask you one question. Is your personal right worth endangering other people's well-being? I think not. After all, it only begins with taking care of yourself that you begin taking care of others. If it is mandatory for people to take vaccinations for diseases such as polio, measles, and hepatitis B, then why not the flu? The cold hard truth is this. By not vaccinating yourself, you put others at risk. By making the flu vaccination mandatory, you are taking care of yourself and others around you. With 151 million to 161 million flu shots being administered every year, and them being free, there's no reason not to get one. It may just save your life. Would you want to be the one who takes the chance and maybe die from not getting the flu shot? If that's the case, then what's your life worth if you don't want to protect it? Thank you.
Either way, the flu shot is not 100%. You can still get the flu. Many other risks also come with the flu shot. Changing the law and making it mandatory will be taking away the freedom of the people who don't want to have the shot. It affects many age groups in different ways and is not safe for everyone. Some religions aren't allowed to get flu shots, and neither are vegans, because of the ingredients that it has. If we make the flu shot mandatory, all of these people could end up still getting sick or getting in trouble for physically not being able to get the shot.
The two sides will now rebuttal against each other.
I think it was the third person that stated this, but you stated that the elderly have a better chance of contracting the flu. Well, isn't that the exact reason why they should get it, in order to protect themselves from it? Because the protection is better than a cure, right?
But I also stated that the people who did get it showed the same amount of chance of seeing the symptoms as those who didn't get it. So using this is kind of just like being freaked out.
I think for most of our arguments, we've stated that most of the flu shots, there's very different types. Not all of them have to inject you with the flu shot in order for you to be immune to it. I think we stated that in the third one.
I also stated that it was the nasal spray, which is the alternative, was connected for some people with even more severe reactions than those who get the flu shot. So even though it is an alternative, it can be more riskful than the flu shot itself.
To include, so does nasal spray for allergy medicine, but with vaccination, it is shown to reduce it by 40 to 60%, and it doesn't change with elderly.
And like we said, it's an alternative. You don't have to get that one.
You stated a lot of times that the flu shot can give you the flu. How exactly can it give you the flu?
Because when you get the flu shot or the nasal spray or anything, you are being injected with the activated influenza. And it's going into your system and it's more than likely going to infect you.
The influenza virus and vaccinations and nasal spray is severely deactivated as well as weakened, if anything. It has no chance of, there has been zero connected cases of the vaccination giving the flu.
Also, there are versions of the vaccine that are not the active egg cells from the influenza virus. They have versions of that that have come out.
But there are still cases that people are getting infected with the flu after getting the shot.
May I ask where at?
All over the country. You hear about them all the time.
I have not heard about any of them.
Statistical evidence is very important to a debate.
Okay, well you say that it's only 40 to 60% helpful. Why don't you just wash your hands then and not have to take the shot? It protects you, keeps you cleaner.
Because you can easily breathe in the influenza virus, and that's not going to stop you from washing your hands.
Yeah, it's still only 40 to 60% effective.
That'd still be better than nothing.
And then how come many people that have never had a shot have never gotten flu?
Once again, statistical evidence, please.
How would you cite resources, stuff like that?
CDC.
FDA.gov.
CDC.gov.
I think we're at a standpoint here. Let's ask another question from your side, please.
Okay, I have one question for you since you've been asking us questions the entire time, so now I have a question for you. What about the other diseases that it can cause that I brought up, like the Guillain-Barré or the ocular-respiratory syndrome? What is more, like what are you more concerned about, the flu or other worse diseases that cause you to be living?
The debate is about the flu.
Yes, but that's what the flu shot can cause.
That's a completely good, great point. That's a great point. But as well as that, you're already reducing one. That is a small amount of cases where it actually shows it for others. The same with aspirin, and I can't exactly remember the disease, but there's a strict warning on the back of it, which says if you are under like 13, you have the chance of getting an allergic reaction or a different kind of reaction. With the flu, you are already reducing that, and it's been shown to reduce other forms of viruses as well.
Any other questions?
Are we going to do audience questions now, or are you guys having it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, you said flu block is the only vegan vaccination out there?
Well, it's one.
Because I only found one too. I think it's the only egg-free one. What are you going to do about the people who are under 18 and who are vegan?
As I've stated before, the comfortability of a small minority is a lot less important than the lives of millions.
So you're going to say they have to like quit being vegan, because it's mandatory to take it on your.
Well, they're not having to quit their lifestyle. That's just one small thing.
Well, still, that might be a big step for some people.
But would you rather be vegan or lose your life because you don't have food?
Well, a lot of people don't lose their lives if they don't.
But there's a possibility that you could.
But you're saying they're not important, and if they die, it's okay? They're under 18?
I stayed nowhere near that. We said they were unimportant. We just said their comfortability, in which if you're comfortable with if a small minority is more comfortable to avoid a flu shot and risk the millions of others, that is just not right.
All right, so now we're going to go to audience questions.
My first question is for this side over here. You're advocating for mandatory flu shots. What would be the consequences if one were not to get a flu shot?
The consequences is overall danger of getting it with a 60 to...
Well, not the consequences of me.
Of you not getting it?
Fined, right? Monetary jail time.
It's just hypothetical right now. We're still working on that debate. And if anything, there could be a fine.
All right, so just a quick question for the con side. Can you restate your final question that you asked the pro regarding was it the vegan shot?
The only vegan friendly vaccine out there right now is flu block, and because it's egg free, and Though it's only allowed for people 18 or older, what are you going to do about the vegans who are under 18?
Okay, just want clarification on that one. Thank you.
The introduction to the con said that you're only hurting yourself. Can we all agree that you have a right to life in the United States? You have a right to live? The Ninth Amendment says that certain rights shall not be constructed to deny or disparage other restraints. So you have a right to live, so you can't have a right that would deny the right to life. So the better good in this case, wouldn't the better good be more important because you have the right to live? This is for the con. The Ninth Amendment says you have the right to do anything not listed in the Constitution as long as it doesn't deny other people's rights. You say you have a right to not take the flu virus. I'm saying that you have a right to live. So wouldn't that right trump the right to not take the flu virus?
Okay, we have a few people who are still kind of confused.
Well, okay. I mean, I think everyone has the right to choose whether they should get the vaccine or not. It's like freedom of thought. And not everybody has taken the flu virus, but a lot of people are fine. For me, for example, I've never had a flu vaccine, but I'm perfectly fine. I'm not out here killing anybody with my illness.
I'm just saying that when you guys talk about it, you talk about it as a right, but through the Constitution, you don't have a right that would deny other people rights. So if we can agree that living is a right of an American, then we cannot agree that not taking a flu virus would be a right.
So are you saying that we should get rid of cars and guns because this kill more people than the flu? Way more. This is the leading cause.
Not relevant.
Well, you don't have the right to kill someone with a gun.
Yeah.
Passing on the influenza, you can not on purpose, but kill someone.
You still kill them though. Either way, if you have a car, you get a car wreck, you're still going to kill them.
Yeah, but you have to get in the car and drive. You don't have to do anything to get someone else the flu.
Go to the hospital to get a shot.
A flu vaccine is completely avoidable. I mean, the flu virus is nearly completely avoidable with a vaccine. So when it comes down to it, you have that personal choice of either taking that gun and hurting someone, or taking that car and driving it into someone. Of course, accidents happen though.
I'm gonna pass it on over, but oh, okay. I was just gonna say that when you say it's a right, they're legally, it's probably not a right.
Okay, I have a few questions for the pro side. I believe one of you said that people are endangering others' lives by choosing not to get a flu shot. Correct? Did you say that?
Yes, that was me.
Yes. Okay. Well, the question says flu shots should be mandatory, so there would be no choice. Don't you believe that would kind of set a dangerous precedent for following vaccines? Because if flu shots are required, you said they have 40 to 60% effectiveness, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So if the precedent is already set with flu shots that everyone has to get them, wouldn't it be easier to require people to get a vaccine that would have less of a percent of successfulness, but still everyone has to get it regardless?
No, not really. I think at the end of the day, you need to get the vaccine in order to take care of yourself and people around you, and that's just the end factor. You're saying the percentages are higher, lower, but at the end of the day, if you're still taking it, you're going to end up taking it.
Well, I guess you're kind of missing my point. It's that
I don't understand what you're asking.
if you're required to get a certain vaccine, then it would be very easy for the government to require you to get other vaccines.
What's wrong with that?
It's helping everyone.
Well, if you don't want to put something in your body, then you shouldn't be forced to. That's your right to privacy.
I get the point you're trying to make, but when it comes down to it, the same thing has happened when you go into school and get the vaccinations already. And people are denying already.
Not all schools require vaccines.
A majority.
Some schools that allow for religious choice to opt out of vaccines.
Like I said, majority. That also says in religious choice. Back to a previous debater, they said that their religious choice is important. And yes, it is, and it's guaranteed in the Constitution for you to be able to have that choice. It's already guaranteed in most cases. If you say, I'm Jewish and I can't take this vaccine, in the majority of cases, you don't get those vaccines, just because it's constitutionally backed.
Okay, well, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that if you stick to the question, flu shots should be mandatory, I guess I'm assuming that there's no exceptions regarding that.
So, what you're saying, so there are required vaccinations that people have to get to enter the public school system. There are 5 of them for kindergarten, there are 2 or 3 of them, I believe, for 7th grade, and there's one for senior year, correct? But there are always ways that people can opt out of those. People can opt out of the vaccines for religious reasons, so they're still mandatory, but they're exclusionary factors.
Okay, so the question, it's mandatory with exceptions. So it's not mandatory.
Well, they're still technically mandatory, but for religious reasons, people can choose to opt out of them. I'm sure most people in here have all their vaccines.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so my question is, isn't America about freedom, correct? Like, that's our number one thing.
Yes.
Freedom. So, by making it mandatory...
Freedom and the safety of others.
Okay, but freedom's like the number one thing. We have people out there dying for it.
You have your freedom unless you're taking away the right of others, and then in that case, you really don't have it.
But that is my right.
Okay, so you have the freedom to do a lot of things in America. You have the freedom to do a lot of things in the rest of the world, but with America taking the majority. You have the freedom to own a gun, but if you are a felon, you don't have the ownership of it. I'm leading this off topic. I'm using a simple comparison between the 2 debates. You have the freedom to take a vaccination. You also have the freedom not to. Right now, we're debating if it should be mandatory, and which it should. And of course, in every case in the world, there has been every case in the United States, there is always an exception.
Our thing is freedom.
Okay, what's your question?
My question is, if you make it mandatory, like, that would get rid of the number one thing America is for. Like, we're known for having our freedom when people come into our country.
There are tons of things mandatory in the United States. You have it's mandatory to get a driver's license before you drive down the road. And that way you have the protection and safety of others.
Alright, like that vaccine wouldn't be the only mandatory thing for America. There are lots of things in America that are mandatory.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure it was the second to last for cons. How you were talking about people got fired at hospitals for not having the flu shot. Well, if the flu is contagious and people at hospitals are sick or injured, then wouldn't it only make sense to have the flu shot to make sure that them other people are safe?
Can you please restate your question? I didn't hear you and I don't know.
Oh. Well, at hospitals, healthcare, whatever. If the flu is contagious, then why not get the flu shot? You're only risking people that are injured and people's lives. Because at hospitals, people are sick, broken arms, injured, they're weak, and the flu shot's just going to make it, the flu is just going to make it worse. So having the flu shot should be mandatory.
But they have the option of wearing masks, so if they don't get the flu shot, then you can just wear a mask and leave.
A mask ain't doing that much.
Victoria, last question.
Alright, this is the last question.
Alright, so this is for the con side. You said that it's the right for an individual to choose whether they want to take a flu shot or not. But isn't herd immunity like a major thing? How you're saying that certain groups are excluded from it, like the Jewish, vegans, things like that. But like herd immunity is what's going to protect them if they say like have a really bad allergic reaction to it and have to be excluded. So I guess my question is like, isn't that an invalid point saying that like not having the flu shot is keeping your rights safe whenever the people who aren't having the flu shot are going to die and you're endangering other people from getting the illness.
But just because you don't get the flu shot doesn't mean you're going to die.
Well, no, but there's still a
There's a
chance.
lot of things that you can die from, but
Danger built with it.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
It's the danger built with it. The risk is, it's a high risk of getting the flu. If you have someone around you that has the flu, you have a high chance of getting it without, and if you didn't have a vaccine, you have a high chance of getting the flu if you live or are anywhere around someone with the flu.
If you're in a car, you have a higher chance of being in a car crash. If you don't drive,
That's a risk you take.
It's a risk you take.
Well, that's the risk someone takes when they're getting a flu shot.
Well, that's the entire point, is to not have to take that risk. The entire point is that you would get a flu shot so that the risk is limited.
Car or something. Just again, comparison. I'm not talking about cars all the time. This debate's not about cars. But if you're in a car, you risk getting to a car crash, but you're going to take that.
And you wear seatbelts to protect it. A flu shot is like a seatbelt for the flu virus. There's no reason. And seatbelts are made mandatory, so why can't a flu shot be?
Yes, sister.
She's a goat.
So the results are in. With 34 to 10, the pro side won. Some of the comments are, I feel that the students counter-argued better. I feel that they represented their position better and were better prepared. The cons were adequately disproven by the pros. Con could have pulled better facts. And good arguments all around. Go side. I wanted to make sure I said that right. So that's a question. We'll do topic number 2. The Electoral College should be abolished. The pro side will start.
As the United States' founding fathers established a means to elect the leader of their country, no ordinary citizen of the past would believe that the Electoral College would be a patriotic and efficient method to elections, and the same principle applies to today's society. Rather than create a voting method that acknowledges the population's total and truthful vote for a candidate, the United States undergoes a process in which 538 unknown electors that account for the people's vote meet and vote for a president themselves. Not only are these the people that decide our leader, an unequal amount of those voters represent the state's population, and depending on what small percentage of the state voted for a candidate, those given electors will vote for the certain candidate rather than a portion of the electors voting, making the voting process even more complex. Even if a candidate attempts to reach out to an opposing state, a certain state that always favors a certain party will vote for that party's candidate, once again receiving all the states' electoral votes, and certain states can differ their opinion on a candidate each year, creating uncertainty in an election and possible political controversy. The Electoral College is a universally misunderstood and even outdated election process that not only reveals unfair voting policies for a candidate due to the unequal distribution of electoral votes because of the unequal population and representation of states, yet this process blatantly ignores the general national popular vote as a whole, which disregards the nation's decision for a leader, discreetly decides unknown and biased electors to decide a leader, and creates a winner-take-all system. Even as the state barely votes for a given candidate, The electoral process distances itself from the democratic roots of this nation. For that reason, it should be abolished.
I know it's an unpopular idea to keep the Electoral College, and I know you have your own opinions, but I want you to keep an open mind. Although it had just happened in the last election, it's very rare for the popular vote to differ from the Electoral College vote. The Electoral College should not be abolished because it prevents mob mentality from taking over. This way, unfit candidates will not be able to get the presidency as easily as they would if the Electoral College was abolished. Having the Electoral College increases diversity because it gives minority a voice. Without it, it would be more difficult for minorities to have a say in their president. In addition, smaller states also wouldn't have a say in the presidency. All the candidates would have to do is win the big states. Last but not least, the Electoral College has a job to vote for what is best for the nation, not what's best for an individual group.
Though the Electoral College may seem like a fair system of representing the views of those who live in less populated states, the opposite is actually true. In reality, states with a lower population are overrepresented in presidential elections. If the number of electoral votes were directly proportional to a state's population, smaller states would be essentially irrelevant. For example, each individual vote in Wyoming counts for nearly 4 times as much in the Electoral College as a vote from Texas. Wyoming has 3 electoral votes, though its population is about 530,000, and Texas has 32 votes for a population of about 25 million. These statistics are as of 2008, the populations have increased. After doing the math, we can conclude that Wyoming has 1 elector for every 177,000 people, and Texas only has 1 for every 715,000 people.
The Electoral College is needed. The majority vote alone can cause problems. If the Electoral College is taken out of the equation, bad things could happen. With the problems with Russia this past election and voter fraud, the majority vote could be swayed in the wrong direction, an inaccurate direction. Also, the Electoral College acts as a safeguard against uninformed people. All of these uninformed people could lead the nation on a bad path. What I'm trying to say is, even if we don't have the Electoral College, what would we have?
A presidential candidate may win only 50.01% of the popular vote in a state, but still end up receiving 100% of the electoral votes. That is because of safe states and swing states. Safe states are proven to only vote in a certain way. For example, a Democrat's vote counts in only states like Maryland, but it would never count in a state like Texas. Or a Republican's vote would never matter in California. Swing states, however, have historically maintained support for both parties, which end up playing a big role in deciding the election. That being said, your vote matters more in a swing state because if you are a minority party in a safe state, your vote has no effect on the outcome of the election. Wouldn't it be better to have a system where everyone's vote matters?
A huge argument is that the Electoral College gives an overabundance of votes to smaller, less populous states. Each state is required to have a minimum of 3 electoral representatives, even if their population would not necessarily give them that many. For example, the weight of a single public vote in Florida is worth about 1/3 of that in Alaska or Delaware, and the Electoral College encourages candidates to go to these states rather than focusing more densely on populated areas like New York City, places like that. And because of that minimum of 3 votes, they have to do this. Because of that, it creates equality between the influence that each state has. It doesn't exclude the smaller states. It gives everybody a say in what's going on. Now, everybody says that this is a bad thing, that, it makes the impact of the votes for bigger states less, that they don't matter as much. But in other aspects of the government, like the Senate, equality is considered necessary, it's considered acceptable, it's considered what we need. But nobody's offering up a way to change things in the Senate now, are they? It's deemed necessary, it's deemed acceptable. So why is this mindset not applied to another government body that has the same basis of equal representation? The Electoral College means that everybody has a say. Everybody has a way to give an impact to who gets to be chosen president, and without that, the candidates simply have to focus on large regions to get the presidency. They don't have widespread support, and they don't represent everybody in the country. So, that's all I have to say.
In the election of 2000, Albert Gore Jr. received 544,398 more popular votes than George Bush. But Bush had acquired 271 electoral votes, so he won the election regardless of these numbers. Another more recent example is the most recent election, where Hillary surpassed Donald Trump's popular votes by 2,868,518 votes. But even though Hillary achieved many more popular votes than Trump, she didn't win the election because she only had 227 electoral votes, and Trump received 304, which exceeds the required 270 votes by 34. So he became president even though she acquired millions more popular votes. This system used to be effective in the old days, back when you had to count all the votes by hand, because the majority of the people, there's millions of votes, but you only had to count 538 for the Electoral College. But this problem is no longer valid because everyone votes electronically nowadays, and it can take minutes to count up all the votes.
I hesitate not to affirm, if the manner of electing president be not perfect, it is at least excellent, was a line written by Alexander Hamilton. A very important matter in the United States is representation. If elections were determined solely by the popular vote, candidates would abuse the system by only campaigning in heavily populated areas. Since their intentions would be to gain as many votes as possible, it would be pointless to gain support of those in rural or less populated areas. These groups would be essentially ignored throughout the election process since they are not as concentrated as other groups. By using the Electoral College, candidates must gain the favor of a state as a whole. This results in more coverage for those groups that would otherwise be disregarded. The Electoral College also acts as a backup for the popular vote. Using only the popular vote could cause controversy due to slim victories. Everybody would call time and again for a recount. The Electoral College solves this issue. It precludes calls for recounts or demands for runoff elections. The Electoral College was developed as a system for voting that would provide maximum benefits combined with minimum complications. It was also created in such a way to be fair and allow for the fundamentals our country was based on.
The Electoral College guarantees certainty to the outcome of a presidential election. If the election were based on popular vote, it would be possible for a candidate to receive the highest number of votes without actually obtaining a majority. The existence of the Electoral College precluded calls for recounts or demands for the runoff elections. The electoral process can also create a larger mandate to give the president credibility.
The Founding Fathers made the Electoral College to safeguard the nation against mob rule and one-sided ideologies. Let's say we take away this important process. We are left with New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, Philadelphia, Phoenix, San Antonio, San Diego, Dallas, and San Jose, just to name a few, to dictate how we run our country. If one were to run for the presidency, all they would have to do is run a big city campaign. There would be no need to go to the battleground territories of New Hampshire, Wisconsin, or even the rural state of Iowa. Instead of broadening democracy, you are now restricting it to the elite populations to decide for the country. Now the candidates will be only listening to what the people want in the cities and not what all Americans want. And those are two vastly different worlds. When having the Electoral College, it forces the candidate to campaign in rural parts of America, and it creates a more rounded individual. You are now hearing what the entire country wants, and not just a select few. The Electoral College creates a balance of voting representation across the country that would be lost if we were to vote directly. We all know that our vote counts, but it means something to a higher degree when you have a smaller voting pool. For example, my vote is worth more when voting in a town, and worth less when voting in a state, and worth even less when voting in a country. Keeping the national election divided into 50 states will increase the importance of your vote compared to the 128,838,731 voter pool in a country election. The Electoral College does not give out votes randomly to each state. It goes by population. California has the highest population in the union, and rightfully so, it has 55 electoral votes. Likewise, Wyoming is the least populated state and only has 3 electoral votes. But when you add all the electoral votes up, you could be 3 short, and that could be your Wyoming. You would never need to worry about Wyoming in a national voted race. The Electoral College raises the importance of lower population states and lowers the importance of a highly populated state. The states are now equal in importance, but the populated states still has plenty more electoral votes. The Electoral College is exactly like the Senate and the House. The House is supposed to represent the popular states, and the Senate represents the least populated states by making everyone equal. I don't hear anyone wanting to abolish the Senate and keeping the House. The Electoral College is a blend of the two to make sure that everyone is represented and that everyone has their voices heard.
The two sides will now rebuttal against each other.
Wouldn't the most fair way of ensuring that everyone has a say in an election be each person's vote is counted equally?
Well, technically everyone is counted equally. Even if you say there's a slight percentage change between Texas and a Wyoming. But whenever you calculate it out, Texas would have 38 electoral votes, whereas Wyoming has 3. You're still getting whoever Texas would vote for still has much more electoral votes than whatever Wyoming would vote for. So even though, let's say Wyoming would still be having more of a weight, that balances out by having Texas having 38 votes.
So a question for the second speaker. You say that the Electoral College is made for uninformed people who will vote. However, the majority of people who do vote will vote for the leader that they're informed about because they've done research on it. Therefore, when it comes to the Electoral College, there are electoral voters that are unfaithful and will decide on biased opinion and persuasion. So therefore, would a popular vote be more efficient?
Uninformed people get their knowledge from not clear things, different websites that aren't correct. Unfaithful electors, they're very rare. That's all I got to say.
So I believe it was the first speaker that said the electors do what is best for the nation. Is that correct?
Yes.
I have a quote from fairvote.org that explains. Since the founding of the Electoral College, there have been 157 faithless electors, or people who do not vote for who they've pledged to. 29 states have legislation that penalizes faithless electors, though no faithless elector has ever been successfully prosecuted. 21 states do not mandate that an elector must vote for his or her party's candidate. So how is that doing what is best for the nation?
Well, if you compare that to not having a popular vote, electors, their job is to do what's best for...
That's their job, but that's not what they do.
But if you put it to a popular vote, by 2020, anyone can win. Basketball player can win. Kanye could win. It's unfit for the presidency. So which one would you rather have? Someone that is their job. If they're not doing their job, that's That's not, I mean, they're elected there for a reason, but for a popular vote, we can't control that. That people
What does it have to do with Kanye?
It's a popular vote. Anyone can win. Anyone who is
Unfit is subjective.
Right.
It's a matter of opinion.
It's always being fit.
Yeah, they're elected there for a reason. Yes. So here,
It's not a good reason. Doing their job is voting for who you tell them to vote for. So why are 157 people not doing that?
But on the idea,
And why aren't they prosecuted for it?
well, on the idea of the faithless electors, a lot of those were original times, I guess you can say, whenever it was first being developed, and that's whenever you would see the presidency change more. But nowadays, the faithless electors doesn't have an impact in the voting. Even though there were, faithless electors in 2016, it only changed from 306 to 304 and 232 down to, 227. So it doesn't change the outcome, and hasn't changed the outcome since the first couple elections, and by now that doesn't make a difference.
One of the original purposes for the Electoral College was to get an accurate representation of people's opinions who lived in more rural areas and might not be able to vote as easily as people who lived in urban areas. Do you not believe this is, in our times, this is an irrelevant reason to have the Electoral College, given that pretty much everyone is within a few miles of a voting facility?
Well, it doesn't matter. Nowadays, it doesn't matter how close or how far you can go vote and stuff. But if you take away the Electoral College, then you're not going to be able to have the voters in the rural areas have the say as the people in the city, because they would have more of a mob rule voting outcome than the people in the rural city and the rural country. So taking away the Electoral College would actually prevent their say more than the city.
Well, for everyone's vote to be truly equal, wouldn't it be a better representation of the country's opinion to tally everyone's vote individually?
Well, they do in the 50 states. In the 50 states, and they combine it with the Electoral College. And then the Electoral College balances out with the populated states and the least populated states.
But the Electoral College can manipulate the outcome of the election.
Yeah, it prevents the cities to take over from the rural counties.
Well, another example, I guess, would be swing states, where you could have one party win by 51% and the other party lose by 49%. And those 49% of votes are, I guess, negated because they just got beaten when there's really essentially equal representation of both political parties' opinions in that state.
And you could say that for the nation too, if it was 51-49, the minority got was.
Well, that's how it was in the 2016 election.
Yeah, but we want to do majority through the state, not majority through the nation. And either way, you can have 51-49 for the state, you can have 51-49 in the nation.
Another thing I heard the last person say was that candidates would go, if it was based on population votes, candidates would just go for cities with more populated people and stuff. But candidates already go to states with a lot of electoral votes, like California, which has around 55. So why would that matter?
Well,
Well, the issue becomes they're going to go to the largest cities. They're already going to specific states, but it's going to create a divide between the more rural areas and the more urban areas, and that's going to create a lot of issues in the long run.
Okay, so I think it was the first guy who said this, that it was a president being chosen by a group of unknown individuals who are choosing for the whole nation. But is that not what the founding fathers were when they formed the Constitution? They went there to not form the Constitution, but to amend the Articles of Confederation. They were literally just a group of unknown people creating an entire Constitution. So are you saying we should negate the whole Constitution because of that?
Well, overall, how were the founding fathers chosen then, whenever, if you say they're unknown? For example, how were they, you say they were unknown amongst the United States, or should I say the colonies?
Well, the thing is, electoral, electors, they're not unknown either. You say they're unknown, the people of the states elect who they want to be their electoral representatives in the college.
But who exactly?
Well, it's not my fault you're not educated on it. If they don't know, that's their fault.
No. Fair enough.
We will now go to audience questions.
All right, just a brief question for the con side. So your point is that if we abolish the Electoral College, then we can allow someone unfit for the role to be elected easier?
I'm sorry, repeat that question.
So you said that if we abolish the Electoral College, it would make it easier for someone like you said, Kanye West to be elected.
A
How?
popular vote, yes.
How?
If the popular vote votes for Kanye.
So your main point is there's no way he'd be elected with the Electoral College, but without it he would.
Well, the Electoral College sees who's best fit for the presidency. If it comes down to Kanye and someone else who's, I don't know, if it comes down to, if he is the best fit for the candidate at that point, then if they elect him, then okay. But as of popular, if it goes by popular vote, anybody can go there. Anyone with no military background, no
So you
skill.
do you mean like by writing? Or do you mean in terms of like a major political party? Like so what you're saying is he's popular, so people are just going to vote for him?
Yes,
without
well, in
it?
this era, yes. I'm sorry. That's true.
A lot of people don't take elections seriously. Like, there was a large percentage of people who actually voted for Harambe for president at one point.
Right.
So I don't know if I trust that.
It was created so that, because in that time there was a lot less resources to research the presidency and the candidates and their opinions and their stance on everything. Now there are those resources, but people do not utilize them for it, and so the Electoral College is supposed to be more educated on those issues so that they can make the more educated vote.
Wait, so the Electoral College is choosing for themselves? I thought the voters were choosing for the Electoral College.
They are, but they are providing a more educated view upon the people's opinions, and they're also being there to create a check for the mob mentality, or the mob.
Okay, let's back this up here a little, simplify things up.
Oh, I'll let you go.
So, what we're saying is how it always has been. You vote, and the electors will vote on how the state votes, okay? You may have some faithless electors, but that is far and few between, okay? And whoever gets, for example, Trump, he did not have any military background or anything, but the people voted for him, and the electors, he got enough electors to put him into presidency. That's all that happened, and that's all we're trying to say.
Okay, I just have, well, first I have a comment about the whole Kanye West thing or whatever. Anybody can just run for president. There are specific requirements that you have to run for president. So it's not like someone completely off the wall is going to say, you know what, I'm actually going to run for president in 2020.
Kanye's off the wall. Come on.
Yeah, so like that's like hypothetical. But okay, I have a question. So for the con side, okay, just say Pennsylvania for example. Say like 100% every single person in Pennsylvania voted for Hillary Clinton, but our representatives voted for Donald Trump. Then how is that a fair balance between what the people want and what the representatives want?
Well, that's completely hypothetical and never happened before, and
Yeah, I
it
know.
won't happen. So.
No, it was just hypothetical.
But
Thanks. I know it was hypothetical.
yeah, but that won't. Yeah, that won't.
Okay, that didn't answer your question. All right.
But it won't.
That's an opinion.
It doesn't.
New question.
All right, hey, I just want to let everyone know that the coaches back here, we're going to collect the votes from each school. We're going to act as the electors, the coaches. So now, you know, Carmichaels, you have 11 students, but of course that's only one vote. Uniontown, you only have 3 students, but that still counts as a vote. Waynesburg, we only brought 5, but that still counts as a vote. So my question's for Conside. Do you think that's fair?
It's also based on how many people the state has represented in the House. So it is partially based on population. The Senate votes allow for states that would otherwise have a lesser representation to have their voice heard as well as the big states.
So because Carmichaels has a majority of 11, we would have, what, 2 votes? Everyone else has 1. So that means that they can outdo the majority. Therefore, we would act as the mob rule, and the minority can outdo the majority.
Yes.
So I would agree.
I think I have a question for the pro side, and I want to make a theory, I guess. Okay, so when we were talking about popular vote, how do we make sure that people are voting for what they need versus what they want? Because popular vote sometimes, let's say in the regular voting, it's what, homecoming king, homecoming queen, it's a popular vote. Whoever is known more is probably voted, even though another one might be the best fit.
How do you know an elector wouldn't do that?
Well, electors obviously see
far less of them, so it would be much easier for them to do that.
They're more educated than an actual voter. And
Why are you
in
assuming
most
that?
studies,
Why are you assuming that?
I'm not assuming that at all. In most studies, it said that people will vote for whose names they hear more than those they don't at all. Some people go to vote in the stands and don't even know who the person is, who the people are that are on the slip.
Well, in a free election, people should be able to vote for whoever they want for whatever they want.
Okay, but that's exactly why the electoral college is there, to make sure that we are voting for what we need other than what we want.
Yes, Walker.
So we let other people decide what we need.
Can I offer a rebuttal to that real quick? To the whole, so we should let other people decide what we need. Let's say you have, hypothetical situation, let's say you're sick, and instead of going to a doctor to see what you actually need, you decide, oh, well, I need 300 milligrams of this medication. Is that okay? No. You don't know what you need sometimes.
That's completely different.
How is that completely different? What you think you need, what you actually need.
There are people in different situations, and electors are in a lot different situations. They're a lot higher up, and they probably get paid more. So people could state their own thoughts, and they need to vote for who they think should be in. And if they vote for someone to vote for them, then that wouldn't be what they want.
It's not up to you to decide what other people need.
New question.
Okay, I have a question for the pro side. I understand the whole idea of free vote and free choice, but America is not truly a democracy. We are a republic, so we are having the Electoral College represent our votes rather than the individual people, because we're not a true democracy.
Yes.
My question being, why would we have the people vote as in a true democracy when we are a republic?
Because this is the topic of the question.
The U.S. is supposed to be free, and the people, everybody's supposed to be free, so we decide what we want. We shouldn't have other people decide that.
Alright, I have 2 quick questions. One was about the swing states and the safe states. How we said there's always a swing state and a safe state. There's this thing called the blue wall, which is supposed to be safe states. They didn't vote Democrat this election. Pennsylvania was supposed to be a safe Democrat state. It didn't vote Democrat. So there's not certain safe states. Also, for the pros, the lady in the middle said 100 electors. And when you hear that, you hear 100 electors, like that's a lot of electors. That's 100 out of 24,600 something electors over 45 presidents. So it's around 1%, less than 1% of all electors. It's not even half of 1% of electors were faithless. So we're throwing around numbers like 100, like where it's 100 out of 200, when it's 100 out of 24,600 and something.
When did I say 100?
You said there was 100 something faithless electors
Oh, that's not what the swing states. Yeah, there was.
out of 24,600 something, which is less than 0.5%.
Okay, so I have a question for the Electoral College. Well, maybe not really. Well, yeah, question. You say Electoral Colleges stops competition and makes it unfair for. You say it makes. Wait, where am I at? 1 second. You say Electoral Colleges make it equal between urban and rural areas. If that was true, how come presidents have always focused on very urban and populated areas, especially economically superior? Unless you are going towards a minority group, you usually focus on less economically stable areas, statistically. And pretty much you said that, and how come they always focus on the urban areas and popular cities like New York, California, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, you name it, and not come to towns and smaller cities like Waynesburg, Morgantown, and stuff like that?
They do go to smaller cities. In fact, Trump went to Menneson. And they wouldn't be going to places like Iowa and New Hampshire for campaigning if they wanted to go to the larger cities for a popular vote. So not many politicians go to, Democrats more go to cities and Republicans more go to rural. But if you were to go to California, that's mostly for contributions, campaign contributions. But for popular vote, you would be more towards the cities and then leaving out the rural areas where you would have to go for the Electoral College.
Okay, I completely understand that. But when it comes to politically, they have always focused on bigger cities, and it's very rare for them to actually stop at a smaller city or a smaller town like Meniscus or whatever you said.
That's a fun name.
And when it comes down to it, I completely get what you're saying when it says that they stop in California cities for economic support.
Yeah.
And it's the same for any other city they stop at. They stop there for a political and economic support through their fundraising.
They still go to rural areas to campaign now. They go to cities to get a large majority there, and then they have to go to a rural area to get a large majority there. They have to go to vote. But for just a popular vote, you're not going to go to the rural areas, so you're just going to stay in the cities. You have to get a vote for the Electoral College.
But that's in a very rare opportunity.
No, it happens all the time.
If you're a smaller town, like Ham Snyder or something like that, she's very dependent on us urban areas like Waynesburg and Carmichaels. She focuses on it constantly. That's because she's a local area politician. But when you have a president and stuff like that, I've never seen Donald Trump walk through Waynesburg, PA, Carmichaels, PA, and anything like that.
But he still needs those votes for the Electoral College. You still need those votes.
What do you think is more important? Taking all the votes in Pittsburgh or taking all the votes in Waynesburg?
Well, you need them both. If you have enough Waynesburgs, you can outweigh the Pittsburgh. That's what happened in Pennsylvania in 2016.
Not really,
but that's what happened.
Okay, last question. Last question.
This is going to be our last question.
So my question to the ones that want to keep Electoral College. Next week is midterm elections. We have a governor's race. That is a popular vote. What's the difference? Because both candidates are going to rural counties, rural communities, and they're going to the big cities. They're going to the Philadelphia, the Pittsburgh, the Harrisburg. They're doing the whole thing. What's the difference? If that's a popular vote and it's good enough for the states to elect their leader, why is it not good enough for the country to elect theirs?
Well, it becomes more complicated whenever we're focusing on the whole country rather than just a state.
Explain me how, because you also haven't told me how the electoral votes, those people are elected to get the honor to be the Electoral College. Because the idea is if you have 3,000 people, 2,000 vote for one candidate, 1,000 vote the other. In other words, your 3 electoral votes should be split among the 3, but that isn't the way it works. All 3 end up going for the majority vote.
Yeah, you could have a proportion if you want.
But it's not done that way nationwide.
It's not done that. So,
so explain to me how that's fair, because so far you haven't done that. Because what you're telling me is my vote, their vote in this room does not matter when the Electoral College is dictating who wins the presidency.
No, it matters completely.
Tell me how.
It matters because you vote for the president.
I vote for the candidate that I want, but yet, if there's 1,000 of us that vote for that candidate, there's only 3,000 will make up my state. There's 3,000 in the state. 2,000 vote for the other candidate. My 3 electoral vote, the 3 electoral votes from my state end up going to that candidate that got the majority vote.
Exactly.
How's that fair if I voted and my 1,000 people voted for the other candidate?
Well, it would happen if a national election also.
That's what I'm asking you. How is that fair?
But now you are looking specifically into the state and trying to campaign into that state.
I get that.
Not even worrying about the state and national.
But you're...
So
but what you're telling me is that if I'm the minority party in the state of Pennsylvania, the heck with my vote.
And that would be nationally also.
But that's not fair!
So that's not fair.
Wait. So in other words, the heck with you, the one party is the dominant party right now, the rest of us, the heck with it, we don't vote. Because what you're telling me right now is me being an independent, me being a Green Party, me being a Democrat, me being a Republican, it doesn't make a difference because the Electoral College, people that we voted for, and I formerly did one of the electoral votes in the state, and they have no more education than I do. Because that's a popular vote to make them part of the Electoral College. How is that fair?
Well,
is it fair? You tell me right now, is it fair?
Perfectly fair.
How?
And it's perfectly fair because it is in the state, and we wanted to have a state election. We don't want to have a national election. That is what we are based on.
So in other words,
if you want to take away the Electoral College, you want to have it.
No, I want it to be fair. And what you're telling me and what they told me is it's not fair the way it's set up because my vote as an individual that I voted in every election since I was 18-year-old really didn't mean anything because if my Electoral College voted against the way I voted, my vote didn't matter.
Well, let's see. Either way.
There is no either way.
Would it matter if you
lost?
In the state.
Like with this popular election, if you lost.
Either way, in the state or the national, if you're in the minority, you could effectively say that your vote does not matter. So.
But shouldn't, okay, then you just brought up my point. Then shouldn't my vote matter no matter whose vote?
Your vote matters no matter.
To who? Who does it matter for?
It matters for the president.
So in other words, my vote doesn't count for president, but it's okay for governor.
The fact of the matter is, if you're a minority in the vote, your vote ultimately does not matter. I know that.
Then again, why doesn't our Electoral College just pick the president and head with the campaigning?
You are the minority. That means you are on the losing side. If you win, that means you are no longer the minority. Therefore, the majority is always winning.
But
that's the majority.
Well, then either way, it's not fair.
We're gonna.
Yeah, please, thank you.
Wow. Everybody turn in their votes.
That's when you stand up and you say
With a 1 vote difference, 24 to 23, the con-side won.
My vote didn't count.
You're welcome.
Some comments were, for the pro side, good points from both sides. Pro had better arguments. Con neglected a lot of their own points.
opinionated because it's a blanket.
The boy with the fluffy hair on the pro side had good points.
Good job.
Number 3, school systems should add 90 minutes to the school day, Monday through Thursday, producing a 4-day school week. The pro side will start.
Okay, all of us know today is finally Friday, but let us imagine for a second all the amazing things that we could be doing today other than being in school. School can be draining, especially for students who have a schedule crammed with AP and honors classes. Often, kids are counting down the days until Friday as soon as it hits Monday morning. Having 4 school days instead of 5 can establish a greater morale, not only within the students, but within teachers as well. It provides an extra day for students to not only catch up on countless amounts of homework in school and lack of sleep, but to have the chance to participate in more clubs, schools, sporting events, and work. On average, students get anywhere from 6 to 6.9 hours of sleep when the ideal amount is 9 to 9.5. Sleep deprivation can affect how students learn, act, and concentrate whenever in the school environment. Mental health is another major prominent issue in the United States. Every year, 7.4% of our youth suffer from depression or depression episodes. I know this may seem like a small percentage, but let's think about this in terms of population. This is 1.8 million children every year. Depression or the compromising of a person's mental health can affect their performance in school as well. Allowing students to obtain an extra day can promote their personal well-being, and it can essentially increase their test scores. This result can also directly affect attendance in a positive way. I can probably guess what most of you are thinking. How can I possibly stay awake during an 8.5-hour school day when I can barely stay awake for 7? Think of it this way. Most of us already have anywhere from 8 to 10 periods a day. This means that each class will be roughly added from anywhere to 11 to 9 minutes longer. In reality, this is not really a substantial difference. This can allow a greater time allotted for teachers to further explain topics that children are confused on. Although school days are lengthened, we are still required to deliver the same amount of instructional time over fewer days. So this is required by state law. So instead of having 180 days, we will have 144. During the additional day, some schools may offer optional enrichment activities such as tutoring or scheduling time for teacher development during the 5th day for students who are lacking educational advancements. An additional pro is the ability to save our schools money that can be redirected to other areas such as musical, sports, and better resources for education. Our world is constantly evolving, and why shouldn't we? Thank you.
Some schools have implemented a 4-day school week in place of a 5-day school week. While the change to a 4-day school week may have its advantages, the disadvantages outweigh them. The amount of knowledge children obtain will decrease due to their lack of concentration after such a long weekend. Also, sleep deprivation is also an issue with teens. The extension of the school day would allow them less sleep, especially with homework and school activities included. It will also affect parents with their work schedules, money, especially those who are economically disadvantaged. More money for daycare or other childcare services. Also, the wages for bus drivers, teachers, and cafeteria workers will likely decrease. Ask yourself this, is saving a little amounts of money worth a decrease in the amount of knowledge obtained? More money from your pocket, more homework, and sleep deprivation.
With a 4-day school week, schools could save lots of money because of less state budget cuts. Also, it was proven that a school in the U.S., District 27J, saved over $1 million a year or 5% money gain a day. Even on a website, usprinting.com, a college website to be exact, a school saved 76% money on subs, 35% on transportation, and 8% on utilities. For money, so with that being said, shouldn't we save money for our schools to get better things?
A shorter school week would also likely result in issues in regards to education. SAT and ASCT scores for schools operating on a 4-day schedule have shown to be lower than those of schools operating on a 5-day schedule. A longer weekend under a 4-day schedule could result in decreased student concentration, less retention of knowledge, and lower test scores. While some studies have shown that academic improvement for a 4-day week, the schools focused on in these studies are primarily small. One school, the reported academic improvement in Colorado has only 44 students. Taking away a day of the school week could also create more homework for the students, and the additional 90 minutes to each day would likely not stop this. An extra hour and a half could also bring the children to be less engaged in the school setting, leading to less effective learning. Thank you.
By switching to a 4-day school week, we allow a buffer day for things such as absences and tardies. Friday could be used as a day to schedule appointments or other things that need to be done instead of during the school day. According to Millstone School District in Montana, who shifted to a 4-day school week, reported a 20% increase in student attendance over a 2-year period. There were also reduced sick days requested by their teaching staff, and the Chattahoochee County School District reported similar results. That same school district also reported that the frequency of discipline referrals dropped by 73% due to more rested students. This shows that there could be fewer absences or tardies as well as fewer disciplinary problems.
Changing the school schedule to a 4-day week would likely lead to issues that will disproportionately affect economically disadvantaged families. With a 4-day school week, parents who work would have to figure out what to do with their children on the day off, and while daycare would likely be the primary option, it could be expensive to those families whose budgets are already tight. Some poor students may even depend on schools for meals, meaning one less school day a week is one less meal for those already disadvantaged children. School service workers, such as bus drivers and cafeteria workers, would also see a loss in wages due to a shorter school week. The poor would also likely have the most difficulty with a changing schedule due to a shorter school week.
As I would like to say, sleep is one of the most important things a human needs. It is the third most important thing for a human, right next to oxygen and water. Unfortunately, 1 in 10 teenagers who attend high school because of a 5-day schedule will only get 8 hours, which is the bare minimum of the 9.5 that is recommended. With this 4-day schedule, you will have more sleep, which means less likely to acquire mental illnesses such as depression, which can lead to more serious illnesses. Not to mention, it is quoted that it has more enthusiasm throughout the school and better mood overall. Thank you.
A 4-day school week would also result in changes to schedules of everyone involved in the school system. This change in school schedule could also result in messy alterations to holiday and special schedules for the school. Also, with the school day being longer, it may affect parents or guardians with their work schedules because of having to pick up their children at a different time prior than to the switch. A switch to a 4-day week could also make the school district out of sync with other districts which have not switched. With the longer school day, there would also be less time in the day for extracurricular activities such as practices and meetings after school. For example, band, student council, drama club, track, football, cheerleading, etc.
The points that my colleagues have pointed out are quite sound. The increase in test scores alone would be a spectacular benefit to many schools in most of the U.S. The increased sleep is nothing but a boon for just about every teenager ever. The decreased spending would be nearly essential to many schools in lower income areas, and the increased attendance is of great importance. All of these points solidly support our point that 4-day school week would be nothing but beneficial.
All right, Chuck. All right, Chuck.
Okay, Chizzy. Let's go, dude.
A 5-day school week is for the. A 5-day school week is for the better. Yes, you can save more money. It may seem as if you have more free time, and there's a chance that you're obtaining more knowledge. But those ideas seem more beneficial on paper than they actually are once the 4-day school week is in effect. Is the amount of money being saved enough to be a significant reason for the switch? Yeah, you have an extra day off of school, but how much time will that be spent during schoolwork? Longer days means more time to learn more things, but how much of that information will you have retained by the time school rolls back around the next week? The disadvantages of the effects on the occasion of the students, of the struggle it placed on the poverty, and the confusion it would place on scheduling cast a shadow over the advantages of a 4-day school week. Would the switch really be benefiting the people who are the real focus, in this case the students?
The two sides will now rebuttal against each other.
Guy in the match shirt. You said that 4-day school week would help students get more sleep.
You want me to explain how that works?
Yeah.
Of course. We have a chemical for teens and for adults and children. We have this chemical called melatonin. Melatonin is a chemical that activates our sleep. For teens, unfortunately, because we have this thing known as puberty, because our hormones are out of whack, the chemical melatonin reacts much later, for instance, 11 or 10. Because of this, we wake up at 6 o'clock, which means if you are an adult or a child, you'd be waking up at 4, which doesn't really feel well, which can affect things such as GPA and overall learning ability. Thank you.
Hey, it's serotonin, by the way.
Okay, so if you were to change the school schedule and make the day longer and you have the off day, you'd get more sleep on the off day because you obviously don't have to go to school. But on the day in which the school day is longer, your whole schedule will be pushed back by an hour and 30 minutes. So how are you getting more sleep on that day, on each day of the week?
Sleep in class.
Yeah.
So you want to, no, wait, hang on. You just said you want to sleep in class. Okay, so your solution, is that a legitimate solution here?
Sleep can be monitored during things such as a 10th period or...
Wait, hang on. Now your solution is to sleep during school.
During periods that are free.
Yeah, if you don't get any free periods, let's ignore that solution. Okay, so often, I get your point that you're saying, right now, just say you get out at 3, you have practice, you have this, you have that, you're staying up late, I get that because I was that late. But also, often, if I do get home, and I'm like, wow, I finally have a free day, I'm still up till 2 a.m., and I'm not gonna lie, I'm up watching Netflix, I'm cleaning my room at 3 a.m. when I shouldn't be, so your schedule isn't always the reason that students have sleep deprivation. I just want to point that out. It's not always a lack of schedule and compromise and stuff like that. Often, teenagers just stay up late. And then also I just wanted to rebuttal the fact that parents have a different, if they work 9 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever job, and your kid doesn't go to school on Friday, you're like, wow, now what am I supposed to do? So I was thinking about that, and I did research. In Colorado, they provided, so the money compromised from them saving on transportation, electricity, and all that, they provided a full day childcare on the days that the parents have off. So their day, they took off Monday instead of Friday for whatever reason, but they provided full day childcare on Monday for students ages 5 to 12, assuming that children's 13 and up have the capability of taking care of themselves.
Yeah, I actually found a similar type thing where they had daycare set up. And I don't know if it's the same school or not, I'm not sure, but it costs $30 per day, every day of daycare to do it. That doesn't sound like it's that big of an issue, but for a family that isn't exactly making a lot of money, that could be a big struggle. So just because and it's only $30, but some people $30, that's significant. So if you change that, then those families are just going to struggle even more than they already do.
Yeah, I know, I get that, I do, because $30 can definitely add up for every Monday. But, implements are always, like they were talking in the last one, if you have like racial or economic issues that like will hold, like withstand you, or like, you know, what I'm trying to say, that will hold you back from like accomplishing certain things like free meal. Like a meal plan, before Brownsville all had free meal, if your parents made under like what is economically considered as a middle class, then you get free lunch. It could constitute for something like that. Like if you can't afford daycare, then obviously there's no way you're going to be able to pay it. So that could be an implement that could be put in place, possibly, hypothetically, that is.
But then if it's not, it's an issue.
If it's not, it is an issue. I do agree.
You mentioned a school in Colorado that had the free daycare on Monday.
Oh, I don't know if it was free. They just mentioned full daycare. They didn't put price on there.
Could that be in the same school that has 44 students?
Possibly.
It didn't say.
Yeah, it did not specify.
I do actually. I forget who mentioned it exactly, but you said that the additional hour and a half would add more time to the class. That could be
9 to 11 minutes, depending on the
sure.
number period.
I come from a school that has a block schedule, so we have 4 periods throughout the entire day.
Okay.
And I did the math, it's about 22 minutes or so. I did to an already hour and a half long class. Yeah. So I mean, I have enough trouble staying through the half hour of class without falling asleep. I don't know about another almost 2 hours now. And then for schools that have, like my friend over here, in AG, they have 10 periods. So an additional 9 minutes to that period, what could you really accomplish with that?
Well, with the 9 minutes or 10 minutes, that could help teachers explain things to kids, because if teachers don't have enough time, they rush through things and explain it wrong, and then they get it wrong. So with 9 minutes, it will help.
But the thing is that 10 minutes going to be able to account for the full, is it going to be able to account for that whole day that you're not there? Or is it just going to lead to more homework? Because I don't feel like, it's likely not going to be the case where that 10 minutes will give you enough learning that's going to get rid of the homework that is going to be piled up from not having a full day of school.
Okay, well, homework is at the discretion of the teacher, because not all teachers get homework. So I don't think the extra 10 minutes that you're going to be in class, that your teacher's going to say, well, instead of doing 40 problems, let's do 60, because we have 10 minutes at the end of class. I don't think that would really be like a valid scenario.
Well, I know what you mean with it being at the teacher discretion. I get that. But the teachers, it's not just a free reign. They have to keep up with what their schedule.
The curriculum.
Yes. So with that 10 minutes, they're still going to need to keep up with the schedule, and they're losing however my a full day.
Well, the day is compromised. It's not like the whole 10 minutes that makes up for a whole Friday of school. Like that has to add up and go into other days. So it's not like we don't have school on Friday, so we just have 10 minutes from that Friday, and that's all you're getting. It wouldn't be like that. I don't know if that's what it's. Right. It wouldn't make up for a whole school day if that's what you guys were assuming.
So I'm amazed at the schedule.
And also about teachers, I did some research, and it actually helps teachers and it helps attract teachers, because with that extra day they can plan, so they're not in a rush and teach the wrong thing. They can plan what they're going to do that day. And it also helps students as well, because they get to study for exams. Like you said, it doesn't help with tests, but I actually did some research. It doesn't help a lot, but it still increases, because you can study for tests, exams, or just finish projects or homework.
Why do you keep saying that teachers are teaching the wrong thing with like shorter problems?
Because some do. Yeah.
Who does that? Turn them in.
Everyone makes mistakes. My Spanish teacher made a mistake just yesterday. She taught us the wrong chapter.
I hope no one's heard of yourself.
I have a good example of a teacher teaching something incorrect. Last year, my ELA teacher decided to say that in an academic creation myth that we were reading, had a biblical allusion, and I quote, because it had the word errors in it.
I don't think any amount of planning is going to fix that.
Yeah, I think that's a teacher's problem.
Okay, the last point that I just want to make, I'm pretty sure we're done with questions, is that, Okay, so most teachers, they have like a curriculum, you know, the 180 days based on, teachers want you to pass tests. That's pretty much, that's all it is. They want you to pass your AP exams and do good on your SATs, and often it feels like teachers, I know they don't do it intentionally or whatever, but it feels like sometimes they veer from whether you're actually learning and obtaining knowledge rather than if you're going to learn it long enough to get a good test score that will reflect their ability of teaching. So sometimes just like an additional couple minutes, like if you're going to leave class confused and like come back the next day and still be lost, maybe it will give a teacher a chance to go more in depth. If they have more time, they don't feel like they're being as rushed to get a certain topic across to like 30 kids at a time.
Now, what would help with that more? An additional day or 10?
Well, like the 10 minutes will eventually build up. I get what you're saying. An additional day could also be beneficial, but just say like, okay, day 1, your chemistry teacher wants to teach about ions, but day 2, she wants to be completely done with that topic. Maybe if she just had a couple more minutes to further like go into her lesson, it could contribute to how well you learn it.
I want to go back to the sleep aspect since that was kind of one of your main points, and this is specifically for the NASA circuit. You said that having a 4-day school schedule would help sleep. How? Because your own teammate said that it might just be up to the teenagers. Yeah, like they're not going to sleep regardless. How is that going to help?
During the 4-day schedule, you will allow more sleep. Like for instance, I would go to sleep at 12 during weekends, and then I would wake up at 9. I get a lot of hours. Not to mention hours that I could be using for, say, schooling. If you could.
Wait, when are you getting hours? 12, you said something about 12 to 9.
12 to 9.
Wait, on Friday? What do you mean, on Friday?
Yes, from Friday to
Yeah,
Saturday.
but that seems like it would compensate for like the sleep you need during the week.
Yes, but you would get more sleep with the idea.
But that's one day.
Yes.
That's one day.
Sleep, you can't just sleep a bunch in one day. The lack of sleep. I've tried it, I know. It doesn't work like that. I've tried it, I know. So you'll be sleeping, you won't have as much sleep on the days you do go to school. You won't have as much sleep on the days you do go to school, but you have a lot of sleep on that one day. You know how unhealthy of a sleep schedule that is? I know, I live it, okay? It's unhealthy.
All right, we're going to go to audience questions now.
Okay, so question for the pro side. Also, just I'm not attacking you guys. You had great examples. So when it comes to the sleep scenario, let's just say that I'm an insomniac, someone who's medically incapable of receiving sleep. So that means that my sleep schedule is literally messed up on the days that I'm practically living. So therefore, when it comes to Friday, how would that make up for my sleep when I'm medically incapable of getting the sleep that I need?
Well, it's not only Friday. You could cut out Monday or Friday. So if we were to go to sleep on Monday, we'd have more sleep from sleeping Monday at a reasonable time because we also would have Saturday, Sunday, and Monday to get all of our work done and get anything else that we need to get done.
Right, that's for Monday, but how would Friday assist me in my sleep?
Friday is way different because then there's no school the next day. So it just depends on what day we have off.
But my sleep cycle is literally messed up. How can I get sleep on Friday?
Okay, well there's always going to be an exception. Whether there's a 4-day school week or a 5-day school week, if you have a problem sleeping, you just have a problem sleeping. There's no helping you. It doesn't matter how many days you go to school. If you can't sleep right, you can't sleep right.
A question for the con side.
Yep.
You kept bringing up how it was just like 10 extra minutes compared to a day, but if you had a 10-period schedule, that's like 40 minutes of class, right?
Yeah, 40, 45.
Okay, well, the 10 minutes, all 4 of the other school days that you had all had another 10 minutes, so that would add up to the 40 minutes you're missing on that school day.
Yeah, but you're not gonna, basically the lesson plans aren't gonna work like that. You're still gonna have a bunch of work to do because you're only gonna get 10 more minutes a day. You're still gonna have a lot more work to do that you would have had done on that one day. Like I know with teachers, I've had teachers that whenever, and I know this is just personal experience, but I think this is probably a common thing. Teachers, if they miss a day, the week's not very fun. That it's not a very fun week because basically what happens is they miss a day, so they have to catch their curriculum up. If you take a day from every week, that they're going to have to line it up, and they're going to have to get more done, or the same amount of stuff done in less time, and that's going to be harder on the students.
Okay, I just have to interrupt something. Does everybody understand that adding the 10 minutes does not mean, okay, you have to have 180 days worth of school, times 7 hours. I don't know, I'm not that good at math in my head. But you still have to allot that time. Like, they don't get to say, well, you don't have Friday, so here's like a little bit of extra 10 minutes and like, y'all will be okay. Like, you still have to have the required amount of education hours. Yeah, I just want everybody to understand that, like, we're not just like chopping a day of school off and we're like, you know what, you don't need that. Like, you still have to make up for that time somewhere else.
Yeah, and we understand that, but what the point is that, like, you redistribute that. You're basically, what you're doing, you're redistributing the time from that day throughout the week. If you do that, the time's just not going to be used as effectively as it would be in one day. Because it's going to be 10 minutes to each day instead of just one full thing. Like, it's like trying to read. It's like trying to do an activity, but you only do it 10 minutes at a time instead of just doing it all at one time. You know there's going to be less flow to it. It's just not going to be as simple. It's just going to complicate things, make it so they have to get less done, or more done in less time.
And not to mention everything that you're getting over the weekend.
What do you mean by that?
The 3-day weekend that you have now. I can almost guarantee none of us are up every weekend studying or behind them.
Oh, speak for yourself. Please speak for yourself. My weekend is
yeah, I have a question about the economic aspect of it. So if we were to do that 4-day-a-week thing, and with the poor people, how I mentioned earlier, how they might not be able to afford daycare, what are they going to do? They just kind of figure out for themselves.
Well, actually, I did some research on that, and I don't know what school it was, but there is a school in Georgia that actually, because of the money they made, $1 million a year, they actually provide daycare for free.
What if a school can't afford it?
Actually, every school that were, you could say, not poor, but didn't have the money to help the school, used the 4-day school week and made money because there's, like I said, less state budget cuts and you make way more money.
What's your source?
My source, one of them is Wayne Independent, another one is from a college, uscranton.com, and another one is Green Garage. If you want, go on your phone, search them up.
All right, I believe you.
Audience questions.
Okay, I'm not sure about your guys' schools, but I know that Jefferson, personally, we have all of our class periods are 45 minutes, except for 5th period, which is an hour, which is when everyone has their lunch, you have a 30-minute lunch. So we have a whole hour-long period for 5th period. And I know, personally, I've talked to a few teachers about this topic, and most of the 5th period teachers agree that the extra, just the little bit of time that they have at the end of 5th period is extremely beneficial to explaining things to people, for helping them understand better. A lot of teachers who have, say, you have a 2nd period and a 5th period class that are the same class, say it's history. The history teacher agrees that the 5th period class always understands better. They have more time to ask questions, more time to understand the material, even with just that little bit of time that they have.
Is that more effective than one day, though? Would that be, if you took a day away and then said that, would it be the same?
It's still the extra time that they have to
explain. Yeah, but they're going to have to use that extra time to make up for what they weren't able to teach in that day.
You have we're taking away a day and not giving the time back. There's still the time. You're still getting the exact same number of hours in every single class that if you take the 5th period away. You have to have that number of hours. You will always have that number of hours. You're not taking away the extra day and not compensating.
But you'll have to use it differently. You'll have the same amount of time. You'll have to use it differently, though. You have to teach more material, you have to use the same amount of time, but you have to teach the material differently, and it could cause more stress to the students and to the teachers.
Like when say we have a day where we have a 2-hour delay. So we have a few 2-hour delays that accumulate during the winter. They have to add an extra, like say, a day or two onto the end.
Yeah.
Like how is that any? I don't understand.
If you have one 2-hour delay, the schedule it's harder for the teachers because they lose. It makes it harder to do it unless it makes it harder to structure lesson plans. Is basically what I'm saying with a 4-day week.
Well, you gotta think, with the 2-hour delay, they cut time, right?
Yeah.
Well, what if for a 2-hour delay, they added the time from the classes they cut 4 more times so they could get their learning done? Then what?
Can you restate that?
With 2-hour delays, they cut time out of periods, right? With a 4-day school week, they would add time onto those classes because they got cut.
But if they had a 2-hour delay during one of those days on the 4-day school week, it would cut the time that they already extra put on. So what would they do with that 2-hour delay that then they just cut?
They would even out the time of the periods.
How?
If you have 4 2-hour delays, you have to make up a full day of school.
Right.
So, like, I think the time would be compromised. I mean, yeah, it's a struggle, but it's a struggle for 5 days a week. It would be like this.
Just because you add like 10 minutes to each period for like an 8 to 10 period class schedule, just if you have a 2-hour delay and that gets rid of 10 minutes, so it's a normal schedule to like what we're used to now, just because that you have a certain amount of time that you normally have on a 5-day school week, that extra 10 minutes or however long it would be during the day would be gone, which they could use they could also use that time for helping with teaching and stuff like that.
This will be our last question.
Okay, so we're really focusing on schedules and sleep schedule. Those are 2 different things. I'm talking about like lesson plans and this is a question for Pro. We're really focusing on that. My question is, economically, how is it going to affect the teachers? When it comes to it, they get paid. They don't get paid hourly in most cases. They usually get paid by salary and daily. So if they lose that day, how are they going to work with their? How are they going to work economically? Are they going to lose out on money? Or are they going to raise their prices? Because we already have a massive budget cuts. In which, at my school, 23 teachers ended up getting furloughed because of those budget cuts.
Ms. Furley, how do you get paid?
For salary.
Like, do you get paid per day, but not hourly? Okay, I can make sure if that was a real thing. Okay. Well, I was talking, my history teacher, he wasn't here the other day because he had to do training, like teacher training or whatever. Days like that can make up for hours that they're missing by not having the extra Friday that they're in school. Or, I don't know, they can explore other ideas on Friday.
Well, is that a guarantee, though? We have teacher and service days. Are you going to make Fridays teacher and service days? Because if that's the case, why do we take that day off in general? It doesn't take a full day to write lesson plans. Don't get me wrong; it's a hard work, but it won't take you 8 hours, 12 hours?
What about grading homework, grading tests, grading essays? That gives them a lot of extra time to grade.
I mean, we're not saying every Friday has to be a teacher and service day. Like teachers, you have to come Monday through Friday, but kids, you don't. But I was just saying that's an exploratory option that they would have.
Oh yeah, definitely. I completely understand that. But that's a lot of money they could lose out on.
To go back to what we actually found that bus drivers and cafeteria workers would in fact lose wages because obviously they wouldn't be driving buses and they wouldn't be making food. So they would lose wages and they probably don't make, I don't know what the exact numbers, but they don't make that much to begin with, so then they're making even less. Exactly.
All I'm saying is, with 4-day school weeks, it would help the school out a lot because all the
poor.
Help the school hurt the poor. No, it wouldn't really help the school. because yeah, we won it before. How would it work before?
What did they pay?
How would it?
He was, yeah, he did. That was misunderstood.
My daddy don't make me know.
So one of your people that you got information from was Green Garage, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I also got something from Green Garage about the 4-day school week, and it was $15.6 million school or something like that. So a lot of money. When they went to the 4-day school week, they only got like $200,000 extra, which yes, it is more money, but out of the whole fraction of it, it's very little. It won't help as much as you may think.
So we got the results in. 26 to 23, the con side won. Some comments were, the cons were better put together. One pro said one thing, another pro said a different thing. Pros didn't make sense. Another one was, love the pro guy's voice. Don't know which one. Another one said, great debate, really great points, and rebuttals from both sides. The last one, both sides presented well. This was so close. I have to go with
Words. Take up.
Drop it.
The next one's gonna be whichever. They said red shirt. I can't read the rest of it.
Okay, folks, this will conclude the debate for today. I want to thank everybody. Before you get rushing out, hold on one second. I want to thank everybody for their efforts, and all the debates were well spoken. And you could see there was, just the way the voting process went, it was compelling, or close in most cases. Our next debate will now be December 14th at Brown's. Tentatively, we're going to try to get that accomplished. Also, coaches, unpopulated email. I guess there may be a potential conflict with the January 18th date. So we may try to adjust that. So maybe look at your calendars, and maybe we'll move it back to. What'd you say, Coach Shabakis, 25th maybe? So we'll try to work on that as well. So hopefully there's no issue with your district of putting a solid date down. There's always some fluidity on my end as far as moving it. So hopefully we will get that accomplished and worked out. So we'll be in contact. Safe travels, and thank you for everything.